Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, after chewing the fat over the failed Northern Ireland Protocol talks and the clear message from President Biden that the UK needs to honour its Brexit commitment, I'd like to consider the realistic options for moving forward with the protocol. And I mean realistic, not just legally, but politically as well. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So in terms of the Northern Ireland Protocol, the two biggest sticking points are as follows. One, it creates huge delays to carry out the sort of checks needed because we aren't ready to carry out those checks. We don't have the facilities. It's also not easy to get ready because building the physical infrastructure is tricky due to limited room around the actual ports, and getting the inspectors in place is tricky because the DUP are blocking it. A veterinary agreement would get rid of most of these checks and it would massively ease the situation. The second problem is that some types of food product are just banned for import into the single market from third countries. This is more difficult to solve, but not impossible. Now, there are other problems as well, but not only are those other problems almost impossible to solve, at least politically, but they would be of concern to fewer people as well. So let's take the problems one at a time. Getting a veterinary agreement has genuine scope because both the EU and the UK want one. The problem is in agreeing what sort. See, the EU have, as I've talked about in the past, offered a temporary agreement whereby the UK would align with EU rules. We could drop it as soon as we liked, and indeed would have to drop it the second we implemented either the proposed Australia deal or the US deal. But it would give more time to sort out more effective systems at least. But the UK won't accept this, even as a temporary measure that they can unilaterally end whenever they like, which is a madness to me, but there it is. As such, as was pointed out in an article in the Times, there's no point barking up that tree. At the end of the day, the UK government have firmly acted against it. Now, the UK's proposal is equivalence. This would mean that both sides accept that the other's standards are adequately high and just let the food and agricultural products flow. But this is not acceptable to the EU, and the reason is obvious. It's complete crap. The reason we won't align our standards is because we are preparing to drop them. We are getting ready for not just much cheaper Australian and US agricultural imports, but ones that do not meet the safety standards of the EU. And that's not just speculation. Parliament has already started legislating for it. They've had their debates, they voted in favour of it. The fact of the matter is that our standards are not going to be equivalent. Right now, the standards of any foods that could pass to Northern Ireland from Britain are of a sufficiently high standard right now, today. It is true to say that nothing that passes across right now would be a threat to the single market. But that is going to change, and it could change quite quickly. Now, the reality is this. The Northern Ireland Protocol is a legal reality. Simple as that. But it's also going to have to become a political reality as well, which at the moment it is not. Neither the EU nor the US are going to allow the UK to drop it. So the UK government have to find a compromise on practical implications. I meant implementations. But we can also say that to get rid of those agricultural checks, which is going to be crucial, there's going to need to be some sort of agreement. It can't be equivalent because we have not committed to maintaining equivalent standards. In fact, the opposite. It also can't be alignment of standards because Parliament has voted to drop our standards. The EU cannot allow chlorinated chicken and hormone-fed beef into their single market, even if we're going to allow it into ours. And it's irrelevant whether or not you want to argue about the merits of certain standards. The standards are the standards, and to compromise that means the single market basically collapses. It's like a balloon. You prick a hole in one part of the skin and the whole thing deflates. So something else is needed. Now, that article in the Times that I mentioned, I will link below, but do bear in mind things like that have paywalls, had three things that it thinks would be viable. The first is a trusted trader mechanism. So what this means is that large supermarkets who import food and drink from Britain are effectively added to a list that means no checks on their stuff is needed because they are trusted. The stuff flowing to them is just going to be on their shelf, sold in Northern Ireland. That's all there is to it. And that would include on goods not permitted in the single market, like chilled sausages. Now, this has been brought up before, and being perfectly honest, might even be possible if we just started acting in good faith. You'd still have checks on the same sort of goods to say smaller customers who only order them sporadically, but major supply lines would be protected. The argument is you can trust Sainsbury's to be buying their sausages only for their own shelves in Northern Ireland. So perhaps something like this would be possible. It would still be a concession from the EU, because bear in mind, what's to stop someone buying those sausages in Northern Ireland and then taking them to the Republic of Ireland? But it wouldn't be done on anything like a serious scale, you would think. So that should be okay in theory. The problem is that David Frost only seems to be interested in highlighting the problems with the protocol that he negotiated and now says he didn't understand, and he's trying to undermine it. He's trying to undermine his own work. So actually finding genuine compromises works against David Frost's strategy. So for any genuine compromises to work, the only real way would be for Boris Johnson to realise that solutions do exist, but that David Frost is a barrier to them. Ironically, we were better off when Michael Gove was in charge of these talks, because he at least was looking for solutions. The second idea, and this is definitely sensible, is to tighten up some of the ambiguities in the protocol. So, for example, it brings up the issue that the protocol states that it's not supposed to interfere with the essential state function of the UK. Yes. So medicines, for example, should be able to pass across to Northern Ireland, no problem. So the problem is, so let's say you've got drugs that are cleared for use in the UK, but not in the EU. Now, in theory, there's a risk that by exporting them to Northern Ireland, they could end up in the EU. Therefore, there should be checks. However, the distribution of medicines is essential. It's an essential state function. So the protocol shouldn't interfere with it by its own wording. So medicines should be exempt. And indeed, according to this report, the EU don't have any serious objection to that at all. It's like, well, yeah, just tidy up the wording to be more explicit about what essential state function means. There's no ambiguity. And no, that won't solve the food issues. It isn't an essential state function to get sausages to Belfast. And if it were, you'd freeze them and send them, because there isn't an issue with frozen sausages, only chilled sausages. So another area where there is scope for a practical solution that would reduce the need for checks and wouldn't be opposed by the EU if we only engaged. And remember that everything we agree that reduces the need for checks makes the remaining checks much more straightforward. Because that's the thing. It's almost like people looking for the solution that just gets rid of all the checks because the checks are the problem. It's like, no, get rid of as many checks as you can and you will make the remaining checks much easier. And if you make the checks much more straightforward, that means traders can actually start exporting to Northern Ireland again. Better for everyone. You get the trade flowing again. Sure, the checks would still exist on some things, and that will be opposed by hardline unionists just on an ideological level, but that's one of the problems that I suggested are politically impossible to solve right now, because the only solution to that is rejoining the customs union single market. But the very people who are opposed to the protocol are also opposed to that. So, now the third change that they suggest in this article is probably less sensible, if I'm honest. The article talked about small parcels, i.e. grandmother sending a birthday package to their grandchild in Northern Ireland. And you can think to yourself, well, yeah, well, what's the harm in granny sending a pair of socks or a knitted scarf or something? Of course, there's no harm to the single market. That's not what's in all packages, is it? You know, they suggested making these exempt as they'd be too few to cause a serious threat to the single market. Now, the author did accept that this would represent the biggest concession from the EU. You're not bloody kidding me. Now, I don't know how many small parcels go from Britain to Northern Ireland, but even if it is relatively few, I don't know that, if you suddenly make them exempt from checks, what happens? You create a way for smugglers to bypass checks in getting goods from Britain to the EU. It's as simple as that. I don't think it takes much foresight to see that whatever the current trade in small packages is right now, it would massively increase with such a system. But although there are things in this article I think represent the sort of British exceptionalism that is blighting our current economic policies, I do agree about the central message. The protocol is here to stay for as long as we insist on being out of the single market. As such, it must be made to work. It is also the case, though not emphasised in this article, that the default position right now is in the EU's favour. You know, Dominic Raab was saying, oh, the ball's in the EU's court now. No, it's not. The EU have got the deal they want. What actually needs to happen is we have to do the heavy lifting in arranging solutions. The EU have committed people towards exploring solutions. It's not like they said, right, we're leaving this situation now. Come to us when you've got an idea. They are committing people to it. They're exploring solutions. They're coming up with solutions. You know, they've not removed themselves from responsibility, but they have an international treaty that is in their favour right now. If we want to change the practical implementation, we need to act in good faith to find real solutions. That has to begin by getting rid of David Frost. He's lost the trust of the EU. Johnson then needs to instruct his replacement to work with the EU to find practical solutions. Accept that checks will take place. Accept that they will take place inside the UK. After all, he accepted that nearly 2 years ago. But work to reduce them as much as possible. There is scope to do this legally. There just needs to be the political will. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.